grand afternoon. True Brit, Arc, why some need me to be dumb, wrong and stupid. I want to cut to the chase on this video. It goes like this. The so-called Caribbean community, the descendants of and the forebears of whose forebears came to the UK. I'm emphasising the UK as part of the Windrush transportations. Who are the sole beneficiaries, it seems to me, of this thing that they are calling reparations, okay, for the supposed transatlantic slave trade. Okay, I've mentioned this in previous posts about my view, and a growing view, not just my view, and it's a view that is supported by science, archaeology, genealogy. I said archaeology. Philosophically, religiously, all supports what I am saying and what it is that I've said, using a lot of that information, if you like, or research information to support what it is that I'm saying about who these descendants and of the Windrush transportations that began in the 40s, actually, straight after the Second World War, which I keep mentioning. Anyway, right. So it's on that basis that I'm saying this. I'm highlighting something that is a very difficult, no, not difficult, uncomfortable topic to be talking about. You're going to need to talk about it. I think I've been avoiding it and sidestepping it for quite some time. It goes like this. As an example, considering that the Caribbean the so-called Caribbean community, which I believe to be that whole experience, if you like, early, particularly the first and second waves up until about the 1973, I believe, they were repatriations. Those people that came over were returnees to their motherland or back to the continent of Europe. Okay? In short. So, what that means is that in terms of so-called black people then, on these islands, as far as the narrative goes, is that we were the first. Now, okay, and since then, we've had various other nationalities coming into the country ever since then, since the mid-70s, I think it is, and in some way, I'm not saying beginning with, and with Uganda, and I think it's Kenya, with the expulsion of those Asians, Ugandan Asians, and those Asian communities coming over, I think it was in the 70s, mid-70s, going to Bradford, primarily up north, that area, Rotherham, where all the issues are now, and Leicester. And you also had a Pakistani community coming over at the same time, okay? From Pakistan, which has just been created. So it's anyway, So since the 60s, and again in previous posts I've talked about riots that I didn't know about until my mum told me about them, that were happening in the 50s. She was telling me about all this activity, that, and how those people that were part of the Windrush generation, that first wave, second wave, there's early waves of repatriation by these returnees. Yeah, maybe some of them knew. I suspect that some of them knew that they were returnees, and there is a mission on. Now let's explain more about that in a moment. So, in short, that community from which also the civil rights movement in this country, I know it all began with Pamela Pankhurst, Emily Pankhurst or whatever, right? Those rights that women gained were based upon the rights that should have been afforded to those black peoples, those melanated peoples at that time. In the UK and in Europe and in the Americas, it was all one movement that people were actually fighting for. At the time of Marcus Garvey was around and alive at that time, along with Du Bois. This is actually before that, before the Civil Rights Movement. But anyway, the Civil Rights Movements that later came to be the predominant feature in the 60s was fighting for was about black people in the Americas, fighting for the rights of black people everywhere, but also for people in the UK. There's a Black Panthers movement also on these islands at the same time. There was lots of conversations that were had between the various movements in America during the 50s and 60s, as we were having the same struggles. Now, since having those struggles, and since that time, the community that I'm talking about, the so-called Caribbean community, the descendants of the Windrush generations, all the rights that they should have been afforded to everybody else, and now we actually can see it being played out. So all the rights and all the benefits that ought to have been afforded, let's call them black people for now, black Caribbeans, Afro-Caribbeans, which is a connotative term. You can't be from two places, and that's where rubbish, you see, because this African part of who it is that we are supposed to be has given rise to many people from the African subcontinent being here on these islands right now, gaining the benefits that my forebears that came from these that came to as part of the Windrush generation were fought for, and we were the ones that built the country up before any of the migrant group, the other migrant community groups that you see now. Before any of them were in existence, actually, before some of the countries that themselves were even existed. So there are people here getting benefits that is basically off the backs of blacks. So but it's not just Africans, it's the Asians too, what we are from the Asian subcontinent, India, Pakistan. Now the difficult conversation for me that needs to be had is about, as I say, we say in our community, we die out of here so long and can't get nowhere and I have nothing. That's the conversation that we need to be having, is how comes is that? And now I'm predicting, and I've suggested it in my previous posts, that at some point some of the people that are here as illegal immigrants that go back 30, 40, 50 years, and that shit that Priti Patel was trying to pull, by getting Africans out of here, people from the Caribbean, sending them back to Jamaica in particular, And also there was a move, people that had been here 30, 40 years, and yes, didn't have their papers. Some of them were stowaways, and again, part of the Windrush generation, and sorted their paperwork out or whatever, were being deported. Yes, some of them were criminals and committed some offences whilst they're here. I might get into that some other time. But you can see beginning to sort of dawn on, well, not me, but because they all had to be brought back. So there's a reason for that, and that's significant. So they were trying to give the impression that the people from the Caribbean, from Jamaica, that were part of the Windrush generation, that deporting those people and making out that they are the illegal immigrants, so hides who the real immigrants really are to these islands. If you like, who the indigenous and aboriginals are, and who the real immigrants are. The real immigrants aren't Mermaid people such as myself, descendants of the Windrush generation. They're the ones, as returnees and people that were being repatriated back to these islands under the guise of the Windrush generation. And I have to sort of say that, in my view, that a lot of the people that were part of the Windrush generation know what it is that I'm talking about, but for whatever reasons, they weren't able to tell the truth. And some of them are starting to speak about what's what and their reason for being in the country, because it's going to be no different in some respects to why it is that, it's going to sound a bit harsh, harsh comparison, but I want to make it because it's the simplest one. People are talking about the people from Pakistan that I hear that are committing these alleged crimes against children. They're couching it in cultural terms, and they're also couching it in terms of, like, for some of the people that are coming into this country, these immigrants, that they're the country that they are migrating from, that it's the worst of those people that they are sending into the country. I'm not saying that that Jamaica sent its worst and horriblest people to come and help rebuild the country and to be part of the Windrush generation. I don't believe that at all. I think there were some elements that might have been like that, but not of that generation. Couldn't afford to do that in many respects, because when they got here, they've got whole fat on their hands. They were received with no blacks, no dogs, no Irish, not necessarily in that order. So that's what the country was like. And on top of that, there were other groups, Eastern European, from newly formed Eastern European countries, I might add, that were also migrating here. And we may well see that some of those people are part of that illegal immigration, or part of that illegal and legal migration policies of inviting people to come to the UK to make their fortune and to take up and get the opportunity to become a citizen. Not a British citizen, to get British citizenship, I think that's still around, rather than the UK citizenship, because I don't think there's any such thing. And getting UK citizenship is different to getting British citizenship, which is what all the migrants are being afforded. So, okay, didn't see that come through. So that's 14 minutes. Okay, not doing too bad then. So, what this post is about, having the conversation, a difficult conversation, I know, because I want to know why it is that these migrant community groups that are here, because we are beginning to become wise to the fact, the Caribbean community, that we're not liked here, never have been. Black people here on these don't like us. But equally, I'm making a distinction between black Caribbean and black African then, because some of the black Africans aren't aren't for us. And I'll tell you for why I say that. Because they've been here so long and have thrived. And again, they've been able to thrive and get by and do wonderful things and aspire and get the best that country's got to offer. But it's based upon the work that we've already done, what we've had to endure, which they have no idea about. Similarly for the Pakistani and the Sikh communities and the Hindu communities, and some of those communities do know what we've had to endure, because we were defending them, protecting them back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, you know, and now we are here where we are, and they don't say anything about our condition. And once their true statuses are accounted for, as I say, you're going to see, I believe you're going to see lots of people being deported, because everybody's expecting that it's going to be melanated people such as myself that are going to be deported. And actually, which I've been saying for years, this is my motherfucking manor, bitches, you know what I mean? Our royalty was all up and down here. The pyramids were built by my descendants, by my ancestors, rather. You know, we are the children, you know, that come from the daughters of Isis or Orset, the capital of which was Paris in France. So these islands here are basically off the islands of mainland France. You know, let's not get twisted about this. You know, there's a reason why we hate the French, or we as in the English, the white English. They don't like the French for some unknown reason. And it's historical, I know. But, oh, excuse me. So what I want to sort of say, and I'm going to say that the white English, white Caucasian, WASP, white Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, all those people, and their followers too, need to be having a conversation about what it is that you've been doing that has not appreciated how you've been able to come to this country and receive all the benefits that you've got without acknowledging the blood, sweat, tears and life of people that are considered part of the Windrush transportations and their descendants. We built this bitch, and it's going to be returned to us whether we like it or not. It's not, you know, it's not my, well, it's not about me. It's got nothing to do with me. It's not about me. This is for cosmic, karmic reasons, spiritual reasons, and, you know, with their consequences. With their consequences and their redemptions. Yeah. So till the next time, may your ERP and your spirituality remain strong. Gone.